Okay, I will call the meeting to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging we are in Treaty 1 territory and traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. I'm Neil Harden, I'm chairing this panel. To my left is Harvey Diamond, and to my far left is Sandy Tapper, who are also members of the panel. Secretary is Kara Belshaw, and the assessor is Kim Wong. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that the applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised, a comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included in the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information on public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Here, can you do the swearing in?
Will affirm. Please state your name.
Kim Wong.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please state your name.
Rocky, you from?
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, first property today is 85 Hargreave, and we have a request for non-cooperation on this. So Mr. Wong, on the non-cooperation.
Before we start, I'm gotta ask this. I'm an appraiser, not a lawyer, and I always have legal counsel with me, and the person I use is unavailable today. He's away, and I'm asking if this can be put off until a time where my legal counsel can show and make proper representation.
Okay, do you have any objection to this being put over to another date? First of all, Rocky, do you have any idea when that might be?
Oh, he just went away for the weekend, so he's free. We have a number of other dates that we're also on, where we've got one coming up in.
Yeah, because we do have time constraints.
Yeah, it's like, the old fashioned calendar, which is not. We've got some dates in September that we've got the 5th, we're here on, at the same time. And that's before the election. And then afterwards, there's a number of dates in November and December we're also here. So September 5th. October's out, yeah. November. I don't have my full calendar, but there's a couple of dates in November that we're here as well.
Okay, so basically September 5th would be the last available date prior to the
Right.
hiatus.
Yeah.
Any reaction, comments?
I guess I prefer to do this today, and if the board like otherwise, then
Is there any particular legal issue that's?
Yeah, it's all revolving around legal issues and the act. And I was just going through the material and, without debating it right now, it is interpretation of Act 16.2, which is a legal matter, not, I don't want to argue law, especially when there's people on the panel who may know more about law than me. I don't think it's appropriate.
So it's more than just was the letter properly received?
Correct. It's not a physical, a delivery issue. It is, revolves around whether or not the act is actually violated.
Okay, I guess we need the caucus as a panel.
You guys, any questions?
Yeah, go ahead if you got any questions, sir.
Okay, so I guess the first question, Mr. Neufeld, is when were you aware of the fact that your council wouldn't be available today?
Just last week. As you know, we would do a lot of jobs together, and I failed to give him this date. We picked up our evidence late, so I think I had about 7 days' notice. And then at that point, I found out he was away in Chicago.
Yes, because I guess my concern is that anybody could come forward and ask to adjourn matters, and I think we have to do so very judiciously because we don't want to form precedents. And I guess the second question is, how legal is this argument without knowing the details of what's involved? We're in a hard, difficult position to determine whether or not you really need legal counsel to speak to it.
Yeah, I think so. I've been retreating from dealing with any of these matters unless it's a purely physical issue that I can speak to. For example, if there was a sale or something and the person who received it wasn't the owner at that time, of course I would address it. But when any of it revolves around the act, I don't think it's appropriate.
Mr. Wong, you heard Mr. Neufeld. He indicated he thinks that there's more than just a technical argument. He thinks that, or I guess an upfront argument. He thinks that there's a legal argument to be made here. What's your interpretation of the situation? Without going into it, do you see a legal argument there that we don't know what the details are? So I'm just asking your perspective on that.
I guess maybe Mr. Neufeld has an interpretation of the act and I have an interpretation of the act.
Okay, so you're confirming that there is an interpretation of the act that is up to be regarded by us.
Well, that's the
It's not an open and shut, there are arguments there.
I mean,
We don't know the details, the facts behind.
yeah. I mean,
seeking
to me,
non-cooperation.
we requested information and it was not returned to us. And so in instances like that, we asked for non-compliance.
So it's a simple matter of you didn't get compliance.
Yes.
And it's the original owner who's had this property for a number of years, or is?
No, there was a change in ownership
When?
prior to the period.
I noticed there was a May 8th, 2015 sale.
Yeah. In 2015,
Yeah.
it appears.
And was there cooperation in, for example, last year?
No.
Yes, there was, right here.
Like, are you talking about
I'm talking
2017?
about 2018, we're doing 2019 now, aren't we?
In
Yeah,
2000,
Yeah, I'm just saying, was it published in 2000?
Last year, there was
Because it would be the same,
compliance.
it'd be the same one, wouldn't it, for both years?
yeah. I mean, for 2017, something was returned to us, but for 2016 and 15, nothing was returned to us.
Okay.
So the year that is, I guess, most important is 16. Or,
Yeah. Was there a non-co-op requested and granted or disposed of in some way for 2018? Which would be the same assessment cycle?
It was a change in ownership, so we did not represent the property owner at that change.
Okay.
So this matter was not before the board in 2018?
No, it was, this.
I'm talking about this property did not come before the
No,
board last year?
No, it was not.
Okay.
All right, Sandy, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
Okay, we'll take a few minutes to talk this.
Do you guys want?
Okay, I will call the meeting back to order. We'll note that this is a 2019 rule year appeal, and so in effect, if we were to grant a non-co-op on that, that would be determined of the appeal itself, because there'd be no point in proceeding. So for that reason, we're going to grant the deferment. However, having said that, Mr. Neufeld, the briefs are changed 2 weeks in advance. If you pick it up late, that's not our problem. Please inform the board as soon as possible if you need extra time to have a lawyer present.
My mistake on that one.
Okay. So we will move on to 765 Ellis. So you may proceed, Mr. Wong.
This is a preliminary matter.
Okay.
The assessor has included a post-reference sale in his evidence, and I think
Okay.
it's highly prejudicial, and it's too late, we've already seen it.
Well, we haven't really mentioned it.
Well, you're going to see it.
Yes, Mr. Wong, we've admonished the city in the past not to include any post-reference sales. In the past, they said it's automatically generated, but we don't care if it's automatically generated or not. We don't want to see a post-reference material.
I understand. There were actually 2 other properties on this docket that do have post-reference sales, and I did not include them. I missed this one, and I apologize for that.
Okay, and the panel will take no note, and nor should you mention any post-reference sale. Okay, you may proceed.
I believe Mr. Neufeld has some post-reference material as well.
We will, well, I haven't seen it, but we will not allow any post-reference material as evidence.
Okay. Okay, the subject property is 765 Ellis. The roll number is 130-317-80000. It's a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1956 and has 33 suites with 22 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $670 to get a potential income of $265,000. Use a 2.8% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $258,000. Use a 59% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $103,000. Kept at 5.5%. We have an estimated market value of $1,881,000. On page 4 are our rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. In 2015, their income was $270,000. Their expenses were $176,000, less some mortgage expense. Their operating income for 2015 is $106,000. To stabilize their income, if you look at the 2015 income of $270,000 and average their expenses from 2013 to 2015, their stabilized net operating income is $110,000. That is a little bit higher than the $103,000 that the model has estimated. On page 5 is information on how we derived our cap rates. On page 8 are some pictures of the subject property. On page page 9 to 19 are the income and expenses submitted by the owner. Next, when you look at the actual performance of the property, it supports the model, and I ask that you maintain the assessment at $4,881,000.
Is that it? Questions, Mr. Newfield?
Valuation on page 3, that you're created the, I take it this created the assessment, is this all model generated?
Yes.
And is page 6 your sold information on capitalization rates?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to inspect the property?
Did not.
Those are my questions, thank you.
Okay, Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, the cap rate that the city is using is 5.5, and I'm looking at the cap rates you have on page number 6 for apartments.
Yeah.
And, yeah. Okay. So that'd be a low rise that starts at 5, and this is 5.5. And how do we get to 5.5? Because of the age?
Yeah.
Anything about condition or anything else that?
Location.
Okay, so it's age and location. If it was that age in a better location, what would the cap rate be?
It would be, if it was in maybe a lesser location, like maybe the Selkirk and Salter area, the cap rate would be a little bit higher.
So that's the only place, like the North End, would be higher for location?
It's either just there or there and a little bit south on the other side of the tracks as well. It might be in a couple of market regions.
Okay. Just wondering how you get the 5.5% cap rate.
For this market region, for age 1946 to 1959, it's a 5.5. It's a 5.5 cap. If there was a same age building in market region 4, it would have a cap rate that's 0.75 higher.
Okay.
And only market region 4, which is, I guess, the area that I mentioned.
So if it's Salter.
Yeah, around
in that area.
Around there.
Okay, thank you. So technically though, I think Mr. Neufeld did ask you a question. He said, is that the only information you have as far as cap rates are concerned? But obviously you have a better breakdown than you provide to us, because you just referred to it.
It's a breakdown of how the cap rates are separated.
Yes. It might be beneficial for us to have that as well. in the future. Anyway, okay. Thank you, I have no further questions.
Sandy, any questions? Okay, so your expenses, well, on page 5 then, you produced the income and expenses for 2013 to 15 to stabilize the
Yes.
the income. Okay, and that's from this, you produced this table?
Yeah.
Good, so it wasn't, it's based on information reported by the owner, but not prepared by the owner. The table
Correct.
wasn't.
It's basically a summary of the income expenses that are at the back of the my brief. Just trying to summarize it rather than have you flip through.
Okay. All right, and Mr. Neufeld, you can give your presentation.
Thank you. This is a recent acquisition by my client, and what the issue we're having with this is that the statements that for 2015, which the assessor has provided for you, did not follow through after the fact. The performance was nowhere near it. Now, it is post-reference material, but what we're trying to illustrate is sometimes when there's a transaction and you look at past performance, it's no guarantee that the future performance will be as good. And in this case, it was drastically lower, and it's not due to a rehabilitation scheme, it's just due to higher expenses. So that the expenses stated on these returns are understated and nowhere near what the experience has been. So that's what we looked at was we just reviewed the expense information we had and looked at the post-reference experience and determined that the number wasn't reliable. So we're not really taking an issue with the gross income. It's just the expenses were much higher. And I'm just seeing if we provided them to you. And again, it's post-reference. You put the weight on it that you'd like. It's on page 3. It's not meant to show how to be relied on for value. It's meant to be relied on to show that the statements presented to the owner and submitted by the assessor are not reflective of actual performance. So our NOI in our first year was actually dropped, as you can see, from 103,000 down to 77,000 on a post-reference basis.
I'm sorry, are you guys looking at this post-reference
No,
information right now?
we won't be considering post-reference material.
You're gonna hear about it though?
No.
No, I'm telling you, it's used as a reliability. I can argue anything I want if it goes to impact the reliability of information previously relied upon. I can't tell you that I can't ask you to rely on the number from post-reference. I can use it to illustrate what's wrong with it. What I am going to give you to rely on is my professional opinion. And the statements understated the actual expenses. There was an error. Now, I noted in this stabilization, and I didn't do it.
I'm not sure about an error. You might argue that there was deferred maintenance that wasn't done, but that's not an
Correct.
error. Their maintenance is their maintenance that they did.
Correct. I mean, prior to sale,
But
it's,
then wouldn't the owner have been aware, or the buyer have been aware of that deferred maintenance? They had done due diligence.
And would not have impacted the purchase price they paid for it.
first of all, there's no recourse coming back to the purchase price. And second, not all issues of deferred maintenance are gonna be apparent on the inspections that are done. The due diligence doesn't go to that deep. All the market transactions we looked at. I think it's quite common for people who are putting their apartments up for sale to try to show a good statement in those sale years. And the way they do that is they cut back on repairs and it shows up later. So that's my issue with it, and based on what we have looked at, I take no issue with the income that the assessor has stated, which is they're showing in the 270,000, which is close to his 265. We should have used 270, so our NOI is actually a bit higher. So I'm just going to adjust my NOI upwards to 86,000. That's what we should have used, is 86,000 NOI on the expenses. So that's the actual revenue, and my estimate of the expenses, which would be 270 less 86, so 184,000. That's the glaring issue. As you can see in 15, they said 154,000 in expenses, and it turns out it was actually 213 in follow-up years. So other than that, as far as the capitalization rate is concerned, yeah, the issues with this are the outline on page 1. It's got a low coverage. The location, of course, on Ellis is not. It's good for keeping your building full in a multifamily area, but you're not going to get. It's not a candidate for renewal and for increasing the rates, because the people in the area can't pay more anyway, so you're not going to get a bump on above guideline increases if you invest in it. 23 parking stalls for 33 suites, which is below code. Given the people who live there, I mean, we can't characterize them negatively, but I'm going to assume many of them don't have transportation, so it's not hurting the existing tenants, but it's hurting the building's ability to earn in the future. Again, the cap rate is based on anticipation, which is what can we do in the future to earn more money. So we've just taken two major issues away from the anticipation, being location and parking. Original age, 1956, quality and condition, which was for that year was what it is, hence the problem with deferred maintenance that popped up. On page 22, we have a number of capitalization rate sales, and the ones we were just going to look at are at the bottom of the page, and 694 Sarah, which is a row home. It's a bit newer. It was renovated after sale. It was based on 8.14 before sale. After renovation, it was worked up to 999. 182 Church, 7.45%, similar vintage. This was had some cosmetic work done before sale. 600 Charles, 7.04, and then lastly on page 23, these two are actually renovation jobs. 6.62%. They were purchased, renovated, and sold on the new income, and they cap at 6.62. They're the same 1959 construction, but they have been upgraded. And although they also lack parking, they're in a part of town where you can get a rental increase because the people that live there the demographics would support higher rents. So the 6.5 is fair, capped at 86,000, capped at that is, I just want to revise my value to 1,323,077, rounded to 1,323,000. That's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Long?
So the cap rate sales that you have are, which one would you say is the most comparable to the subject property?
I'm thinking right now 600 Charles.
Okay. Sorry, and that one's kind of, it's coming in at 70,000 per unit, and currently you're asking, with your previous value, you're asking for 35,000 a unit, and for your revised value, you're asking for 40,000 a unit. Why such a discrepancy between such comparable properties?
Well, it's not a discrepancy on the income basis because properties are valued at how much they earn. You're talking about a different method of valuation, something a pre-renovation purchaser would consider is how much it's going to cost me per unit, how much do I have to invest, and what's my return. The assessment department doesn't do it on a per unit basis, and neither do investors who are buying a revenue stream. You're buying a revenue stream, pure and simple, nothing to do with price per unit.
When you do appraisals, do you take other approaches into consideration?
We
Like the direct comparison approach?
we review the direct comparison approach and see how it fits in the market, but ultimately, every single appraisal reads the same way. We rely on the income approach. Always do it.
Okay, so, but in this particular case.
Unless it's a candidate for renovation.
Yeah. There's a noticeable difference between the value that you're asking for and the cap rate sales that you provide.
No, there isn't, because they were bid down, they were on the same basis, which is the income. You're confusing the issue. There's no relation at all to the price per unit.
Oh, so you're talking about, there's no, direct comparison is not used or relevant in appraisal?
No, because what's gonna happen is, let's just say, you have a site that gets $100 a month more in rent and earns more money, and so it's gonna cap at the same amount, but the sale price per unit is gonna come in higher. Well, the purchaser doesn't say, oh, well, I'm gonna pay more as a result of that. They're paying more because it's earning $100 more. There's no, I mean, we don't even have to put our blinders on. We pay attention to the income, and as I said, 20 years of doing this, with the exception of renovation projects where there's a project underway, we've never used, or if it's a condo conversion, we never use a rate per unit. And there's other factors too, like there's,
Sorry, is the subject property being renovated?
not to my knowledge, there's like 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, 3-bedroom units. So if you've got a mix of units in there, and versus bachelors, of course, we're going to get more income on the larger units.
That would be all my questions.
Okay, Sandy, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Harvey?
So you felt, you indicated that you didn't think that the lack of parking spots is a problem at this point, but you thought it basically detracted from the future prospects for the property?
Yeah, it doesn't give you any optimism. A lot of times, a property, there'll be a more aggressive market interest in it if it meets a couple of criteria where people see conversion down the road as being a factor.
You think this property, where it's located, is a prospect for conversion in the
No.
future? No. It's on a bus route, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. And a lot of the people who live in a property like that wouldn't have cars in any event.
That's correct, and that just tells you it's gonna stay what it is.
Yes.
And there's no there's no pressure to drive the cap rate down.
Which takes us to the cap rate, and you're proposing a cap rate of 6.5%, and the city's at 5.5%.
Correct.
And what's the basis of your request for 6.5%?
The market, actual sales.
And the actual sales that you've shown at the back of your report.
Correct.
Are these, is this report of yours cherry picked?
No.
Or is it the only ones available?
No, the ones we don't put in are renovation jobs, because those aren't real cap rates. They're not purchased for their
Okay.
revenue. So this is everything that I was able to dig up, and I mean, I can talk about some of the other ones. Like we have some better quality ones in there, which there's a total of 8, 10 here. I just didn't talk about the others because they weren't the same.
That's fine. You thought that the best example was in the bottom of page 22, which you said sold for a cap rate of 7.04%.
Yes.
And it's the north end, so is that why it has a higher cap rate than you proposed at 6.5% for yours?
I think it's an issue of rounding, and one sale does not market make, as you can see that we do have some other examples that cap below that, the Hargrave sale at 662. So, I mean, it's not just one particular sale. You can't,
Okay.
you're required to look at the whole market. And this particular sale, I should mention, the stabilization I did myself. I appraised this property, so this was presented as, this is what the owner made his purchase decision on. Sometimes in the stabilization, we didn't do it in this case, but there are some properties that when they go through the stabilization process give you very funny results. But there is a strong range here of sixes and sevens, and the approach, the other thing that's, and now you're making me think, and that's just gonna cost you time, you have to listen to me, but you see what I did with the expenses. They were understated, so we corrected them. So as a result of correcting them and that stabilization, we've now got more anticipation able on that side, where we can go from 7 down to 6.5. If we had accepted them as they were, the anticipation would be negative, and we want to cap higher on that core revenue stream. So we've got a balance, that's all I was doing.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Phil.
Okay, no, I have no questions that weren't asked, so. Any summation that anybody wishes to make, Mr. Mullen?
I guess I'd just like to say that, like, the applicant is asking 35K a unit, and originally, we were at 57,000 a unit. His cap rate sales indicated something between 63K and 174K a unit. I just think that the approach that we've used is leading to a more accurate value, and I asked to maintain the assessed value at 198,881.
Okay, just any comment?
I find that statement to be very concerning. The assessor is well aware that when the roll was released, along with the model that showed income producing, the way assessments are done on income producing properties, very clear that it was done on income. Now, today, to defend this, we're looking at a different approach. Now, as to why they're doing it, that's not, I don't care why they're doing it, but they shouldn't be doing it, because you know what they're doing? They're discrediting their own model. If now they're saying, if now they're saying, oh, we don't want income, now we want settled per
You're
unit.
making new argument, you're not making summation.
Well, I'm responding to his summation, and it's a very timely issue, because I'm facing this with another property, and you can't change your model in the middle of the stream just because you want to try to win a hearing. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, next we will move on to Altus and 458 Belmore.
First of all, I don't believe we've met.
No, I'm Sandy Topper,
Chris
nice to meet
Dirksen.
you.
Nice to meet you, Sandy. Chris Dirksen. Nice to meet you. I think we met a while ago.
Yeah, we have,
Chris.
Are you in training?
He was with us, and then he left for a while, and now he's back.
Ah, he's back, so he's gotta be reacquainted with the right way of doing things.
Gotta be retrained again,
Will you swear in or affirm this
yeah.
morning?
Firm.
Please state your name.
Chris Dirksen.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope you have the usual Altus table at the end.
Yes.
I've seen before.
Amy trained him.
Yeah.
Okay, 458 Balmoral, you can proceed, Mr. Wong.
Okay, the subject property is 458 Balmoral. The roll number is 130-519-98200. It's a residential apartment block that's 6 stories high. It's built in 1989 and has 54 suites with 16 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $796 to get a potential income of $516,000. We used a 2.8% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $501,000. We used a 53% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $232,000. Capped at 5.25%, we have an estimated market value of $4,428,000. On page 4 are rent comparables. Shows that the rents we've used are supported by the market or a little bit below market. On page 5 is information on how we derived our cap rates. On page 4 are some pictures of the subject property. Sorry, page 7. Page 9 to 16 are the income and expenses submitted by the owner. It is operated by Manitoba Housing.
So this is Manitoba Housing Company?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So
It is.
the rent geared to income or?
They don't have any sort of dollar, actually, sorry. It looks like it is, yes.
Okay.
It is a nonprofit.
Okay. Continue. Sorry for the interruption.
No, we're gonna get to it, eventually, so, I mean, it is, like a Vietnamese nonprofit. So the income and expenses, that are provided are, for a nonprofit, and those types of income and expenses, they're probably not typical of a regular apartment building, which is, what we're trying to value it as currently. On page 17 are some CMHC rents, just to give you a good indication of what market rents are like. In the whole Centennial area for all properties, the bachelors are 600, the one bedrooms are 782, and the two bedrooms are 1059. Sorry, my last page. They're just CMHC rents for buildings that are a little bit newer, and the rents are a little bit higher than for the area, for all properties in the area. And if you go back to my page 1, the original assessed value was $5,082,000. But I recommended a revised value of $4,428,000, and it's based off of my page 3, and to try to reflect that this is a housing property, and sometimes the units can be basic, and sometimes the wear might be a little bit more than your typical apartment building. So felt that the revised value is warranted, and I ask that you accept the revised value of $4,428,000.
Okay, how do you view the recommendation?
We do accept the we do not accept the recommendation. We appreciate the recommendation.
Important keyword missing.
Yeah, sorry. We appreciate it, and we thank you for that. We're pretty close on the net operating income. We do still have an issue with the cap rate, so we do still have an argument with that.
Okay,
So we will not accept the recommendation.
all right, is that your presentation?
Yes.
Questions?
Yeah, only one question. This question will apply to all the properties that we go through today, but I'm asking it for this specific one. To date, you're providing a summary of the city's cap rates and information on how they were derived, but you do not provide any specific cap rate evidence. Is that correct?
We did not provide any sales.
That's all my questions.
Okay, Harvey, questions?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
Sandra?
No questions.
One question, and I know it has come up in past hearings on nonprofits in this area, is it's classified in Centennial, which includes a number of the higher value properties downtown, which would affect the rates achieved there. Wouldn't it be more comparable to a different area? These aren't downtown high raises?
No, they're not. They kind of sit right in the middle. In the Centennial area, it includes not only those downtown high rises, but some other probably lower level apartments as well. And so I feel that the average is representative of a largish range, but this is, like, this particular building is a, so it was built in 1989 and is masonry and is 6 stories. So it is a, I would say, good building, and some of the market rents in the overall area are probably a little bit higher than the rents that we've used in this particular case for my revised value, and I feel that the maybe slightly lower than average rents is reflective of the building and the area.
Okay, thank you. So you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. So turning to the first page, Mr. Wong went through most of the property details already, so we won't go into much detail with that. But on the first page, you can see a photo of the subject property, as well as our request. We're requesting the assessment be reduced to $3,666,000. Flipping to the next page, there's a photo of the area of the subject property on the west side of Balmoral, just north of Ellis Avenue. From there, I'll have you turn straight to the last page of the brief, which is our income valuation. So it is the property does have subsidized income, so we don't rely on the income statements in this particular case. So we do accept the assessment department's effective gross income of $559,860. While we don't feel we can rely on the income, we feel the expenses would still be appropriate. We feel the property would still experience similar expenses to other properties of this type in the market. So we have stabilized the actual expenses from 2014 to 2016. As you can see there, we come to a total expenses of $321,579. With that being said, our net operating income equates to $238,281, which is not far off from Mr. Wong's recommendation of $232,449. So we're very close on the net operating income. As mentioned, we do have issue with the applied cap rate of 5.25. The property was built in 1989, and it is a 6-story property, so we consider it a high-rise. With that, our Altus cap rate study, which I'm sure you're all familiar with already by this time, with a premium, which I will discuss in a minute, we apply the capitalization rate of 6.5%, which comes to our final value of $3,666,000 rounded. So turning to back to the cap rate discussion, turning to page 4. The cap rate study is included as an appendix. I won't go into too much detail on it unless requested. So as mentioned, the property is 1989 and a 6-story, which puts it in the high-rise 6+ category. So Altus, the Altus cap rate study indicates a cap rate of 5.5%. We are applying a cap rate of 6.5%, which is due to the fact that we apply if you turn to page 5, we're applying a premium, site-specific premium of 1% to account for the added risk of this type of property. We typically apply this premium to properties similar to this, like Manitoba housing or subsidized income housing. This is due to the added risk of certain factors, such as there's no property-specific reserve fund, it's budget housing, it's not the highest quality, and it's low-income tenancy, commonly low-income tenancy. There are a couple of municipal board orders which have been referred to on this page here and are included in the appendix as well. So as mentioned, the resulting market value is rounded to $3,666,000, and we respectfully request the board to reduce the 2019 realty assessment for the property to this value. that concludes my presentation.
Any questions, Mr. Moore?
No questions.
Harvey?
I don't have any questions.
Sandy?
No, I don't. Thanks.
Okay, I have no questions, but I'm just gonna do some. Okay. Thank you for that. Now we should move on to,
I'd just like to say, just to sort of sum up on the particular.
okay,
previous
previous
comment.
submission, sorry.
Yeah, I think like I was saying before, like nonprofits typically have, like their rents are typically lower and their expenses are typically higher than what a normal what a normal apartment would operate as. So feel that using either the rent or the income, or the rent or the expenses might not lead to the most accurate values. And also that the Altus cap rate study, you know, their sales indicate a value between like 88,000 and 174,000 per unit, and the recommended value that I propose is that's 82,000 per unit. So we're at the low end of that range, and the lower rents the lower than market rents that we've applied do take into consideration the property and the area, and so as you as you accept the recommended value, the $4,428,000.
Okay, any summation?
Just to make a comment on that, we do feel that the added risks for these property types are not reflected in the lower rental rates, so we feel that's not sufficient to reflect the property. There's still additional risks involved with these types of properties, which is why we feel that the premium in the cap rate is still applicable to this property.
Okay. So now we will move on to 185 Smith. And, okay, I was gonna say, I hope there's no mention of the recent sale of that property.
What sale are you referring to?
There was one that went through this year. It was sold to a private developer.
Sorry, I'm just kidding.
Okay. I'm out of it, never mind.
That was pretty good.
But this is what I mean. It's like when I actually, with the previous property where I had left the sale in there, it was like when I was reviewing the information, I'm like, wait a second. And so, yeah, it was, I missed it. Okay, the subject property is.
You may proceed unless you want to trick the chair.
No,
a
that's
bit
it,
more.
that's it. No. We're done with that. I was just trying to have some fun. The subject property is 185 Smith. The roll number is 120-932-47200. It's a residential apartment block that's 20 stories high. It's built in 1973 and has 373 units. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $553 to get a potential income of $2,477,000. We used a 25% vacancy to reflect that the current status of the building is that it is gutted and empty and not occupied, giving us an effective gross income of $1,858,000. And we also used a 65% expense ratio to get to further reflect the condition of the building, to get a net operating income of $650,000. Capped at 5.25%, we have an estimated market value of $12,389,000. On page 4 are rent comparables, showing that the rents that we've applied are supported by the market and probably a little bit lower than market. On page 5 is information on how we derived our cap rates. Page 7 is a picture of the subject property. The last few pages are the income and expenses submitted by the owner, the previous owner, which is Manitoba Housing. On page 17 and the last page gives you an idea of what the market rents for typical buildings in the area. For buildings in that age category, bachelors are about $660, and for the entire area is about $600. And I feel that supports the $553 that we've used. So this isn't your typical building, and considering that we've used below market rents, and we've applied a 25% vacancy as well as a higher expense ratio to reflect the current condition of the building. So I feel that the value reflects that. It reflects the current condition as you maintain the assessed value at $12,389,000.
Okay, questions?
Have you inspected the property?
I've not.
Okay. Obviously you are aware of the current condition of the property.
Yes.
Do you feel 25% is sufficient vacancy rate to reflect the current,
That's what we typically apply for a vacant building.
That's all my questions.
Okay, Sandy, question?
I have no questions.
Harvey?
I have no questions.
If I recall correctly, there was damage to this building, fire damage. And I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was unrepaired damage there and it wasn't worth repairing. That's why Manitoba Housing never repaired it and put it back into service. Is that correct?
I'm not sure about that. It's like I did not talk to the owners or the previous or the current owners to, so I'm not sure about their reasoning for why they sold it. I mean, it may have been too expensive for them to repair, but it also may have been for other reasons, which I guess I'm not sure if too many of us are privileged to.
Okay, but I guess my question boils down to if there is unrepaired damage, then that would have to be accounted for in the valuation of the building.
Yes. But also, I mean, I do recall that there was a substantial amount of money put into the building prior to them selling it as well. And so, I mean, there was damage that needs to be addressed, but there's also work that has been done as well. And
Yeah, there are the solar panels on one side of the building that is probably unique to.
yeah,
The high rise
This is
and then
what I
too.
remember from a few of the articles that I read in terms of the current condition.
Yeah. Okay, then you can proceed then.
Thank you. Turning to page 1, there's a photograph of the subject property, which shows the solar panels there. Our requested assessment is, our request is to reduce the assessment to $3,081,000. Turning to page 2, which will we'll come to some of the questions you had as well. The property experienced significant water damage in 2015. You'll see them in some of the photographs that we look at shortly as well. It shows the water line, what the water level is at. So yeah, the building experienced significant.
It's water, not fire.
Yeah, it was water.
Okay.
Yeah. So shortly after that, in 2015, the entire interior of the building was gutted, and the building remains in this condition currently, with the exception of the basement, which they did replace some of the utilities, some of the the water pumps, and some utilities like that are replaced, which you can see in the photographs as well. So yeah, the building is currently completely gutted. The current owners are in the planning stages currently, and they expect to complete the renovations and obtain occupancy sometime in 2021. So it is a long project. The property was inspected by Altus on July 31st. Photographs were taken and are included in the appendix. So if we turn to page 10, this is where the photographs start. Page 10, you can see this is just one floor of the building that we took photographs of, but all the floors are identical to this, gutted interiors. Turning to page 11.
So these are these prior to the beginning of the renovations, or these during renovations, or?
This is the state it has been in. It is my understanding that when Manitoba Housing gutted, like, the current owners haven't done any work. They haven't completed any of this.
So this is indicative of the condition since 2015?
Correct.
Okay.
So page 11 shows the basement space, which you can see there has been some upgrades to the equipment there, which is the only thing that has been completed since the water damage. Page 12, again, basement photographs. You can see on the photo on the left there's a faint line, there's a little line that says 2015 by it that shows what the water level was, which is pretty high up. It's probably 4 feet.
What page?
Just beside the light switches, page 12.
Okay.
So the water is pretty significantly high.
This is the basement,
This is the basement, correct.
Okay.
Turning the page 13, another photograph of the floor in its current condition, as well as the entrance area. Page 14, again, similar photograph of its current condition. So as you can see, it's not capable of occupancy. Referring back to page 4, considering its current condition, 2 approaches were looked at in determining the value of this property. Evidently, the city relies on the income approach to value this property. It is our opinion that the income approach is obviously based on income and expenses, and the property is currently not capable of occupancy and therefore not capable of obtaining income. So we feel that the 25% vacancy rate applied by the assessment department, as well as the high expense ratio, we feel it's not sufficient to reflect its condition of 0% occupancy. With this in mind, if we were to rely on the income approach, it's our understanding that how we would approach it is we would determine the value of the property via the income approach as if construction was completed. So we determine what the value would be if the building was occupied, which you can, if you turn to the last page of the brief here, you'll see the workup for that. Basically, we're not relying on this to determine our value, but this is just kind of illustrating, if we were to rely on the income approach, we essentially adjusted the vacancy rate to a market vacancy rate, applied a capitalization rate according to the Altus cap rate study, which determined a value of approximately $21.5 million. This is what we feel the property should be valued at if it were currently capable of occupancy. If all the construction that is currently underway was completed and it was occupied. So with that in mind, with that value, we have to deduct the cost to cure we have to take off what it would cost to get it to that position, which is what we've done here. Flipping back to page 4, we took that 21.5 million, and we just, there's a CBC, there's actually a number of articles, but there's a CBC article included in the appendix, which quotes a government official estimating the cost of repair of the building at a minimum $20 million. And that was a minimum. As well, we spoke with our client who purchased the property, and they stated that currently their budget for the project is set to $38 million, and that number does not include the purchase of the property. So that's what they're estimating this property will cost now to complete the construction in 2021. So evidently, even with the lowest number being 20 million, we come to a minimal, possibly negative value. So for that reason, we don't feel the income approach is appropriate in this case. So we are not relying on it. Turning to page 5, the second approach that we looked at was the direct comparison approach. So determining that the income approach wasn't appropriate for the subject, considering it's not capable of income at the moment, we rely on the direct comparison approach, and we're looking at land sales. So we feel a land value of this property would be appropriate. So we looked at downtown land sales, the most recent downtown land sales that would be appropriate for the subject, and we came to a value of $85 per square foot, which is near the top end of the range, specifically looking at 155 Gary, which is the second row on that chart. Very close to the subject property. It sold for $84.78 per square foot in a fairly recent sale, or fairly close to the reference date, July of 2015. The only sale that was higher than that was 225 Carlton, which is True North Square, which we feel is a very motivated sale, and it's a bit of an outlier. It's not really, it doesn't really reflect the market. Yeah, basically it was a very, very motivated sale. They had to be there. They wanted that property regardless of what they had to pay for it. So we're relying on the high end of the range here, without looking at 225 Carlton in that case. So based on that, we feel the land value is appropriate, and we are suggesting a rate of $85 per square foot. The value, if you take that number applied to the square footage of the subject property, comes to $3,081,420, rounded to $3,081,000. And that is what we request the board to reduce the assessment to. In addition, that concludes my presentation.
Questions, Mr. Moore?
So I guess in this particular case, you're attributing no value to the current building that's there right now.
Correct. Via the income approach, there's no value to be attainable. But yeah, there's no value you can apply to the subject using the income approach.
Okay. And on your last page, you're indicating that if it was occupied, there'd be a value of $21 million.
This was a quick illustration. It's not like we were valuing the property actually as of in this hypothetical condition.
Yeah.
This is just to illustrate what it. We're not saying the value would be that. What it potentially would be.
Yeah.
If it was occupiable.
Yeah.
As of now. Again, we're not relying on it. We're just using it as an illustration to say this is what it could be, but cost to cure are required in that case.
Okay. And on your second last page, you said that it's pegged at $38 million to renovate.
Yeah, the second last page is an email correspondence with our client, and that was his response on what their budget was.
Okay. So that would be all my questions.
Okay, Harvey, questions?
I guess a couple of questions. First of all, your best comparison, you said, land value, was the property in Gary, which is really half the size of such a property. Actually, it's less than half the size. So would you not say that a parcel that is twice the size, which you do a lot more with, would command a premium value to a property that's half the size, even though it's in the same area?
Potentially, but there could also be economies of scale in this case as well. A larger property could sell for less per square foot.
Well, maybe that's true, but
Could go
also
either
a
way.
person who wants to build a big building like you've got here wouldn't be interested in a parcel that's half the size, and there aren't really a lot of large-sized parcels in that part of the city that are available, are there?
That could be true as well. It could go either way, economies of scale, or it could be more desirable. Basically, the main point to look at here is that we took the high end of the range and applied that to the subject property, which is what we thought was
Okay,
appropriate.
now your client bought the property and a post, I guess, the sale took place after our dates that we consider.
Significant.
But I'd be interested to know what they paid for it, actually, and we don't know that.
We don't know, we're not going there.
I know we're not going there, but okay.
It's irrelevant.
Well, it might be irrelevant, it will be relevant next year, but,
Yeah.
And at that point, they would issue us a
okay.
supplement.
So why would your principal here want to pay $38 million to renew a property that's only gonna have a value of $21 million after?
That is the value as it would be currently occupied. I can't speak to their motivations.
No, I understand, but I'm assuming they're business people.
Yes, they,
Okay, so I just wonder what rationale they can have, because you're using an argument that, I gotta tell you, it has some merit to it, but at the same time, it doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense, based on the fact that, knowing that your principals are business people, I can't believe that they would put $38 million into a building that's gonna have a $21 million value after they're finished.
so the extent of their renovations, which I'm not aware of, it may be pretty significant, and at the point, so this valuation that we're doing here, 21 million, is basically looking at it in its current condition, not current condition, but like, look, as if this building in its level of
Okay.
finish,
So a $38 million renovation then is gonna create a better property than a $21 million property,
Correct.
you're saying, okay.
correct?
So there's potential here that we have to be aware of.
There's potential
Now,
in the future.
So is the building got in, you say it doesn't have any value at all? With the equipment that's been put down in the basement and the fact that the building is already there and just has to be finished at this point?
If you're using the income approach, I feel you still need to reflect.
No, if we're using the direct comparison approach, we're.
Direct comparison approach?
I think that your argument that it has no income and is not potential, has potential of earning an income now, I can see that argument, but you know, you can't roll it both ways.
But what could you use the current property for? What value would a shell building have with,
Well,
some-
depending on what it costs to rectify it, to remedy, you know, the deficiencies now, and make it into a building that's gonna earn income.
Which is, yeah, what we, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure, because,
We just feel there's no value in the building, there's no value in
Yeah.
a shell building, there's land, it's land
okay,
value. is the
if you're
highest.
gonna go there, I really would like to see appraisal of the after effect, which could be obtained, and you can even write it back down to April of 2016, and what it's gonna cost to get there, and we don't have all that. We have maybe some details of what your principal is prepared to do, and you're indicating yourself that it's gonna give us a much superior building than you have right now. So,
Not in, potentially, I'm just saying that's potential.
I'm not sure what you're, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sandy?
Do you happen to know, is the $38 million budget what it's going to take to get it to the point where it can be rented, or is this something going far into the future beyond the point where it's gonna be income producing?
That's
Do you
tough.
know?
That is to occupancy.
Just to
That is the cost to get them to occupancy. So the cost to complete, so the cost, whatever the extent of their renovations are, I'm not aware of, but the extent of their renovations completed and getting the occupancy.
So that money is gonna be spent between now and 2021?
That is when they're estimated to complete the project, which would indicate that.
Okay, sorry, I have one more question. So, are they contemplating converting this to a condominium?
I'm not aware if this will be a condominium or.
You don't know that?
I don't know, I do not know.
Has it got potential to be a
That
condominium?
is kind of irrelevant post-reference here
Well,
material.
Well, no, because if it can be converted, it would have a valuation today of its potential.
Right.
Yeah.
But their purchase was post-reference, so we can't.
No, I understand the purchase is post-reference, but does this property have potential to be converted to a condominium?
I'm not aware of their intentions.
Thank you.
Anything else? Ann?
No, thank you.
Okay, wouldn't it be fair to say that the construction costs of any building will far exceed the revenue that building will generate in any given year? Even the year to start a building from that new apartment going up on Graham and Main costs far more to build than it will generate in income in a single year.
Yeah, the cost approach is commonly higher than the income approach. It's commonly a higher number than other approaches. So stating that, for example, a house costs this much doesn't necessarily mean you'll get that much for it, potentially
Yeah,
less.
so in other words, they're putting that 38 million into generating a stream of revenue for the next 20 years.
Correct, so that 38 million, regardless, that number is still sufficient enough that it's not, you can't appropriately apply it in the income approach, so that reducing the cost to cure, even if we're on the low end of the estimate of 20 million, we're still getting a value lower than the land value, which is why we.
Yeah. But now my question is the value of the structure as exists, surely it must have some value for that structure. For instance, you don't have to build foundations, don't have to build columns and beams and all that sort of stuff. You got the structural elements in place, so it's more or less like a partially completed building.
Understandable. You would still have to use the cost to cure though, in order to be able to utilize that.
Yeah. Yeah, but as opposed to if you just took that land as vacant land and decided we're gonna build a new, completely new building on it, presumably your cost would be lower.
Again, there's also advantages to starting on bare land as well. You could build whatever you want. Now you're kind of stuck with the current shell of the building. There's disadvantages as well to purchasing a vacant lot versus an existing shell, right? So you're pretty stuck within the confines of the building in that case.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Any submission?
No.
Submission?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. An interesting, interesting property to deal with. $12.41 grants. Our last property today.
Okay, the subject property is 1241 Grant. The roll number is 120-157-18100. It's a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It's built in 1961, has 17 suites with 10 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $914 to get a potential income of $186,000. We use the 1.7% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $183,000. And we use the 45% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $99,000. Capped at 5.25%, we have an estimated market value of $1,889,000. On page 4 are rent comparables, showing that the rents that we used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income, how we derived our cap rates. On page 7 are some pictures of the subject property. On page 9 are the income and expenses provided by the vendor. Is the income as of January 1st, 2016. And their net operating income was $130,000, which is noticeably higher than what the model is estimated at $99,000. feel the actual performance of the property supports a value that's probably higher than the assessment, but I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $1,889,000.
Questions?
None other than the cap rate question and ask initially, which will apply to this as well.
Yeah, okay. I was looking at your table and it's just a cap rate issue. Okay, Harvey, any questions?
Yeah, I guess the cap rate, so I'm looking at multifamily and it's low rise, and you start at 5%. Why was this property given a 5.25?
Because of the age.
Okay, so it's because it was built in 1961,
One.
and if it was built in 1960, would that have increased the cap even more?
If it was, say, built in 1955, it would have, the cap rate would be 5.5.
So you have to go all the way to 1955 to
Yeah.
use another 1/4%?
I believe so, yeah.
I thought it was 1959 maybe.
It might be 50, well, I'm just saying, I'm just
Yeah.
using 55 as an example. It might be
Yeah.
59 where
I think it was 59.
where our cutoff is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was 59.
between 5.25 and 5.5.
So missed that cutoff by 2 years, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all my questions, thanks.
Sandy?
I have none.
Do you have any information on if this apartment was renovated? In the picture, it sort of looks like it's got the vinyl windows and door and that, but
I am not aware if renovations have happened or are upcoming.
okay. So that's my question, then you can proceed then.
Thank
And if
you.
you could answer my question, if you know the answer.
I do not know the answer to that, actually, sorry.
Okay.
So turning to page number 1, a photo of the subject property, along with our request is to reduce the assessment to $1,725,000. And as was mentioned, this is just a cap rate issue here. The property was purchased in 2017. We didn't have any prior income expense information to that purchase, so we have nothing prior to 2017, which is why we are accepting the assessment department's net operating income. Page number 2 is a photo of the subject's location on Grant Avenue, just west of Nathaniel Street. We can flip straight back to the last page, our valuation. As mentioned, no contention with income or expenses in this case, because we do not have any information to contend with it. So we're accepting the assessment department's net operating income of $99,192. Based on the age of the property, built in 1961, and it being a low-rise, 2-story, the Altus cap rate study indicates an appropriate cap rate of 5.75%. Applying this capitalization rate to the net operating income brings us to a value of $1,725,000, which is rounded.
Okay, questions, Mr. Moon?
Sorry, I was just gonna.
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, it sounded like.
No, sorry. Just flipping back to page 4. I know we already kind of discussed this, but we have included the cap rate study as an appendix, but you can just see our chart there, which summarizes the study. And for a low rise, 1961, we'll see the Altus cap rate of 5.75%. And that does conclude my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Wong?
No questions.
Okay, Harvey, any questions?
Okay, so you're happy with the city's NOI, basically, you've accepted that. Whereas when your principal purchased this property, they had an NOI, it looks like, of $130,906. So if we take the $130,906 and use your cap rate of 5.75%, are you aware of the fact that you get an assessment of $2,276,000, which is quite a bit above what the city has right now? So in other words, for you to use your cap rate in your NOI.
When was this, that you're referring to the assessor is page 9?
I'm referring to the mailer, yes, that indicated that there was NOI of $130,000, not what the city used at $99,192.
What is the date of this?
January 1, 2006.
2016. We have no contention with the city's NOI.
No, I know you have no condition with cities NOI. I asked you if you're aware of the fact that if we were to use the NOI that was the actual NOI, and your cap rate, you'd have a much higher assessment.
Do you want to be sworn in? Do you have a comment to this?
Well,
She's
I think
not
the
sworn
answer
in.
speaks for itself, it's
Yeah.
okay. The answer speaks
You
for
wouldn't
itself.
want it.
Okay. It's okay, you don't have to answer it.
Yeah, we didn't.
I was giving you an opportunity of speaking to it.
Sorry, we didn't, I just want to note as well that we didn't have any of this information. This was not available to us.
Well, when your principal purchased the property, they certainly must have had statements.
We didn't have any statements from
Well,
them.
it's not, they should have given it to you to prepare this.
That was, we didn't have this information available.
Okay.
Okay, I have no questions, so is there any summation you wish to make? Summation, just cap rates? Okay, thank you. That concludes today's hearing, so we'll get back to you quickly, I would imagine. On this,
Thank you.
have a good remainder of the summer.
Thanks, Lisa.